What's unusual about your body? My hair started losing its color when I was 10 years old. I used to be brunette. My hair has been completely silver and white since my 22nd. I used to work with a guy in his late 20s who had dark hair until he went through a very rough divorce. Over the time span of about 3 months, he went from having very dark hair to hair that was snow white with just a few streaks of gray. It was really weird to see it happen that fast. My heart is bionic at this point. I've had 4 open heart surgeries. Aorta and mitral valves are now titanium. It makes a ticking noise like a clock. I'm only 30. Hopefully I live longer. My dad had something similar. I'm not sure the details, but he was born with a heart deformity, had to have open heart surgery when he was a little kid, and once when I was young, maybe a couple other times. One or both of his valves was titanium, and I remember the clicking it made. He was 39 or 40 or something when he had complications with some medication he was taking, something to do with blood pressure or thinning, or I don't know. He unfortunately had a stroke as a result and died. Just past 8 years since then. Hopefully you have better luck than he did, or at least keep on track with your meds better, haha. Seriously though, hopefully you live a long and prosperous life. 2 of my toes on each foot are webbed halfway. The index and middle toe, each side. Nothing else. I can't swim any faster, which I personally think is bull. You actually do swim faster than you would if your toes weren't webbed. Like maybe 10% better. But unfortunately 10% better than is still. You just need to train like an Olympian and you will use the 10% edge. And in 30 years we will be having debates whether or not webbed footers should be allowed to compete. Don't miss your glory. I have a rare condition in which my large intestine is smashed over to one side of my torso and my small intestines are smashed over to the other side. The only reason we discovered it is that one day they decided to physically switch places, causing extreme pain. They have switched places a total of 4 times in my life. It's really painful and kinda gross hearing your goopy bits flop around inside of you. Not the same OFC, but I once had part of a kidney cut out due to monster kidney stones. Anyway, I developed a chest infection in the days after surgery, whilst bedridden, and ripped the internal stitches numerous times. Couple of blood transfusions needed. The blood in my torso coagulated into one solid jelly mass, and every time I would turn onto a different side in my hospital bed, it would make an audible peeling noise before dropping and finding a new position on the side of my torso I was lying on. The feeling of that big clot moving between my organs and the accompanying noises and discomfort was almost as bad as the kidney stones themselves. Awful. My sweat is extra acidic. I can fully rust guitar strings in a week or 2 and have eaten holes on 2 laptops where I rest my hands. Both happened within a year of use. Strangely, having been on opiates on or off for years for neuropathic pain, severed my arm. I've noticed that the higher my average dose, the more acidic my sweat becomes. No doctors have been able to attribute that to normal side effects when I bring it up in passing. I started to notice it when my black baseball hats started turning orange around my forehead. My shirts would start fading or turning orange at the high sweat areas, back, pits, chest. My pillows would also change colors in the summer, etc. It's not nearly as bad as eating through devices though. That's extreme. I'm sure you're well aware, but drinking lots of water, more than average recommended, and eating more fruits, veggies can help, as well as taking sodium bicarbonate baking powder. If you aren't already using these, I'd recommend trying out Elixir Strings. I found out about them from a guy on YouTube that had the same problem, and they were the only kind he could use long term. I don't have the same issue, but they're just damn good strings in general. The strings themselves are just normal .REO strings, but the coating makes them last a really long time. I have a few sets that are 5+ years old and they still sound great. The polyweb strings have the thickest coating that lasts the longest, but they only come in sets of 9 seconds and 10 seconds. I was born with 1 kidney, but my 1 kidney is the size of 2 combined, so I have 1 super kidney. I learned I have giant kidneys recently. While recovering from major surgery, the kidney team stopped by my room and told me they'd like to run tests. They were asked to follow up by the surgery team after the kidneys were spotted on an ultrasound. Larger than normal kidneys are usually a bad sign, and mine are something like 20% plus larger than they should be, but turns out they are fine. When I was born, none of my organs were in the places they should be. Had 5 surgeries after birth to get everything moved around and put to right places. Luckily, no issues since. I have an aunt that has her heart near her bladder. She lived her whole life in Mexico that way with no issues. She eventually moved to the US and continued her life. Eventually, she had respiratory issues. During her medical exams, she told doctors about her condition. She also didn't have great medical coverage. After seeing she wasn't lying, they started giving her free medical care in exchange for her letting them study her heart condition because it is so rare. My torso is longer than it should be in comparison to my legs. Like, my legs stopped growing before my upper body did or something. I'm 5'4" for context, average female height, but one time I went furniture shopping with my mom and realized for the first time, from paying attention to the couch length, that when I sit on most couches my legs significantly dangle off the ground. My mom could not stop laughing at this realization because I looked so tiny on these couches, but now I'm cool with and like my long torso and call them my baby legs. Really, the only annoying thing is hiking when I have a small stride to reach things. Being in a relatively tall family, I have a tendency to walk really fast to keep up, but my 4 steps is another person's long stride, so I guess it really evens out my ADHD. Last time I was with my brothers, I mentioned how some things just fit poorly because I have short legs. We all kind of took a step back and examined one another and came to the conclusion we all had short legs and long torsos. My little brother said he had to take his pants to a tailor because the shortest size available at the store and on Amazon were still too long. I have been known to shop in the kids section on occasion. I sweat on the left side of my head when I even think about spicy foods. The worst part is I love spicy food. I have something similar, although it's not just my left side but my forehead. Thoughts and smells can trigger the response. Are you full on sweating? Mine is usually just extra moisture, but I can feel the response. And then all hell breaks loose when I actually eat the spicy food. Enough to drip sweat everywhere. I sneeze when really hungry. I wonder if you have reflux. Next time this happens, try taking a Tums and see if the sneezing stops. Stomach acid in your esophagus could potentially irritate your nose enough to make you sneeze. When stomach acid splashed on my husband's vocal cords, he has involuntary squawks. It can present very weirdly. I also lost my dad to esophageal cancer from uncontrolled GERD, so keep an eye on this. My internal organs are all flipped 180 degrees, so everything's backwards. Situs inversus totalis. Sorry, I should have clarified better. Not flipped in place but completely mirrored. So organs are on opposite sides as well. My cousins got that. Born in 1965, apparently at the time it was still something not studied enough, and a professor in the hospital where he was born asked my aunt if he could talk of the baby's case in his paper, so some other exams. But she was absolutely overwhelmed by a traumatic birth and then the scare of knowing that something is wrong with your baby before finally being told that no, everything was fine because the inversion was absolutely perfect, so she denied her consent. Now he's almost 60, he's living a normal life, 2 kids, has played sports. He was prospected heart problems at the very first. What did they tell your parents? How is your health today? Well, I am an achondroplastic dwarf, so let's see. I'm 4'0" tall at 29 years old male. I have disproportionately short limbs compared to my torso. I can barely put my hands in my trouser pockets because they are so short. I also need to get all my trousers cropped 3/4 length. Trousers can also work as full length for me. I have what is called trident hand configuration. Basically, my hands naturally split into the Vulcan hand sign, like 3 prongs. It's a common way to identify achondroplasia in the womb and how I was diagnosed. I did have bowed legs. I needed to have my legs broken and straightened when I was a kid. That was fun. Can't fully straighten my arms. Even when fully extended, they are slightly bent. Also can't raise them much beyond my shoulder. Super handy when you're 4 feet tall and everything is out of reach. Absolutely stellar. I have mono lids despite being a white Scottish guy in a family with no mono lids. That and frontal bossing and a depressed nasal bridge is the package dwarf face deal when it comes to achondroplasia. Guarantees that you'll always get random strangers approaching you going, "Aren't you that guy from Time Bandits?" Despite the fact that you were born in 1994. There's more stuff, but I could be here all day. Just to be clear, these are all symptoms of my dwarfism. It's not like I've been super unlucky and got a bunch of unrelated conditions. Just one mutation can cause all this. The body is great, isn't it? The only compliment I've had on my looks was that I have unusually attractive knees. This reminds me of a wonderful interaction I had as a kid. I did this acting camp in the summer for a couple years, and one year it was a very rambunctious crowd with a bit of cliques going on. So the teachers did some team building exercises, and one of them was we formed two lines, each one facing the other. The people at the front would think of a compliment for the person in front of them and then scurry back to the end of the line. It was like a game to compliment people as much as possible, as fast as possible. There was a boy there that I didn't get along with, and the only thing I could think of when I got paired with him was "you have nice knees," and I think he said to me "you have nice eyebrows" or something. I honestly don't remember his one to me, but I do remember laughing my absolute off after that interaction. It was the tip of the iceberg for me, and I got along much better with everyone after that. Anyways, if that just happens to be this commenter, then hey man, nice knees, haha. When I was born, my umbilical cord was inside out, and it was the first time the hospital I was born at had ever seen anything like it. So they asked my mom if it could be sent to a nearby university to be shown to students in order to show them what the inside of one looks like in real life. I am going to that exact university next year and will be on a quest to take back my umbilical cord. Provided it's not been thrown away, I don't know how long they last. I imagine that if it's being used for study, it's been preserved in formaldehyde or something. That only slows down decay, so I don't know if it's lasted these 18 or so years, but worth a shot to at least look for it. My siblings were present for my birth. One of my sisters was 6 at the time. When the doctor lifted up my placenta to show her, she said, "Cool. Can I take it to school for show and tell?" Unfortunately, she was denied the opportunity to share this amazing and valuable organ with a class of first graders. I'm 21 and going through menopause. I hit puberty at the age of 2, had a lot of hormonal issues growing up, but my mother was resistant to getting me help, so I'm the same height and weight I was in 5th grade some 11 years ago. I can also type with my toes and do simple origami with my feet like a ninja star or paper airplane, which is a fun party trick. One of my nieces started puberty at around 5, but an endocrinologist seemed to put her on a different schedule. She's now a typical 17-year-old. She was born very prematurely and had surgery on her ovaries while only a few months old. I don't know if that's related. Because of her premature birth, her development was tracked very closely when she was little, so anything out of the ordinary was caught quickly. I'm a medical mystery in that I got a salmonella infection in a cyst on my spleen, and to this day no one knows how it possibly got there. Gut bacteria can disseminate from your intestines to other organs, either directly flowing through the blood or hitching a ride in an immune cell that failed to destroy the bacteria. This isn't actually a mystery. If you give a salmonella intestinal infection to mammals in a lab, you can find living salmonella in spleen, liver, kidneys, and intestines as almost a guarantee. Some research has shown salmonella that hides in other organs can actually travel back to the intestine and give you recurrent gut infections, so that's fun. Tleater, more unusual than mystery. I sweat too much. It autocorrected into I swear too much. Wow, a ton of hyperhidrosis folks out there, so I wanted to share this anecdote. If my shower is too warm, I start sweating, and once I towel off, I'm just wet from sweating for hours. My wife complains about my cold shower water, but it's how I don't completely render the shower pointless. Anyone else like that? Never been diagnosed with anything myself, but I have similar issues. I am constantly hot and overheating even from just sitting down. If I take a shower, I have to at the very least rinse off the warm water in cold water, but my body radiates heat so much that if scoop any off of me the water on the coldest setting it can go, it feels like warm water. When I was a baby, I got a vaccine in my cheek and it got infected. It was left alone so long that it got infected all the way down my muscle on everything the needle touched. They had to cut it out, and for a couple of years I didn't have an cheek. Then my grew in all right, and now it just looks like I have a dimple. It's by my hip, so it doesn't look weird, and everyone that's seen it has said it's character lol, but to me it's just a crater on my, and there's no muscle there, and if I touch the middle it still hurts. I fell on a rusty nail as a toddler. Luckily, a good squeezing of the ray. Infection. No joke, that is the only treatment they gave 3-year-old me was enough. I later developed severe infections in both my hips, so I have had 2 hip operations to clear the infection with 1+ month hospital stay and learning how to walk again, and a total hip replacement on one side, both. My knees are shot and I'm looking towards a semi-robotic future where all the joint below my hips might need to get replaced. Oh, also have hormonal issues caused by the sepsis. Ibs from the antibiotics. My theory, it doesn't work and I'm susceptible to infections. But I have a cute dimple on my, in the words of my mother. One of my balls hangs lower than the other two. I went in for a physical one time, had that third ball. She asked if it's been there long. Yay, I guess. I don't know. So, I got the hole. It could be a lump or growth, and we all know what that means. Right before a vacation. So, get my ultrasound done and wait for the results. It is just a mass of blood vessels in there. Hurts sometimes, but otherwise harmless. But it was a scare, and it can look like a third ball sometimes. I have a third boob. Never even knew it was there till my milk came in after giving birth, and suddenly there was this giant baseball-sized lump under my armpit. When I saw my lactation consultant, she said it's a rare thing that can happen to some people. It has a teeny tiny nipple and even had milk coming out of it. I had to ice it for a week so it would stop producing milk. Before anyone asks, no, I don't have any pictures of it. I was super sleep deprived and recovering from a traumatic labor, so the last thing on my mind was taking a picture of my new accessory boob. I wish I had though. That was on house. A patient came in with signs of having cancer, and she'd had total mastectomy to prevent it because of genetic factors and a screening or something like that. Stuff happens. They eliminate every possible cancer. House keeps thinking it has to be cancer. They declare she has one of a few terminal diseases and is going to die soon. House is obsessed with discovering which and finally realizes she has breast cancer in her knee. Also, other things happen. House is to some people and criticizes the concept of honesty, etc. My circumcision was up, so my look like the Demogorgon. Wow, this is the most love my wiener has ever gotten. Love you all. Tie for the support. My friend in high school confessed something similar to me. I never saw it, but the way he described it, basically he had only a partial foreskin, kind of a flap. He said it was annoying and made him embarrassed. I threatened to give him a new nickname of Flappy as a joke, but the hurt on his face made me take it back immediately. They said when he was done, growing, they might be able to finish taking it off to prevent future issues. Don't circumcise your kids unless you really need to for medical reasons, folks. I can dislocate my shoulder at will. I used to be able to do that, thought it was real cool when I was 7, then I started to get pain in it playing baseball at 15. At 28, I finally told my doctor about it because my shoulder would feel like it was ripping apart if I pulled the wrong way. Turns out it was a loosened shoulder. Took nearly 6 months of physical therapy, but I didn't realize how much general pain I was in from it until it went away. I would honestly get that checked out. It was life-changing for me. I have Chiari malformation type I. My brain is too large and doesn't fit in my skull, so my cerebellum gets smooshed into my spinal column. I had surgery to correct the issue, but now I'm down my C1 vertebrae and a chunk of my skull. A couple of years ago, my kiddo was at Seattle Children's Hospital and we shared a room with a little girl who had just had one of many surgeries to fix that. The way her dad explained it was like her helmet was X amount of sizes too small. The poor thing was absolutely miserable coming off the anesthesia, and she was all of 8. I hope you're at a place of not needing any more surgeries and procedures for a while. Do you have a shunt to drain excess fluid regularly, or does it ever even out? I have a large facial scar, literally just like Scar from The Lion King. My hair and beard just make it worse. Meeting new people, especially kids. When my grandsons were toddlers, they were scared of scars I have in each temple. My neck was broken, and the bolts from the halo left deep, distinctive scars. I told them I got carried away dressing as Frankenstein one Halloween and decided to keep the marks in case I want to do it again. They thought that was hilarious. Their ages 10 and 7 now. They still joke about Frank and Nana. I have had great success turning it into a Halloween joke with kids. I hope you can find a way to make it into something a child can laugh about. I don't care what adults think. My grandsons being scared broke my heart. I can pick up a tennis ball with only the toes of one foot. I'm willing to send a photo set. You have to PM me to get on the list though. I also have a foot hand. As a kid I used to pick up all kind of stuff with my feet. Thought it was totally normal until I was at a friend's house and dropped my pencil, picked it up with my foot and then passed it back to my hand, and my friend's family went into rolling laughter asking me to show them over and over again. I kind of stopped doing it so much. I think it's from having a hyper-flexible foot, the joint being more mobile than they should be. I don't know if you ever got this looked at or anything, so you might just ignore this, but I read sometime that the way we feel in the morning is actually largely influenced by our expectation. In other words, if we slept too little, but we're convinced had a good night's sleep, we might actually feel that way too. So you may have found yourself in a feedback loop where you feel so tired because you expect to. I've been partially deaf since 3 and have never known what it's like to hear normally. The first time I was asked if I missed being able to hear normally, I had a small existential crisis over the fact that some people remember what it's like to be able to hear normally. I have pectus excavatum and was born with a third ear on my cheek. The third ear was removed with plastic surgery when I was a child, but now I have a patch on my cheek that can't grow facial hair. My son had the NUS procedure to correct his pectus excavatum. They said it was causing heart problems. I still question if we did the right thing. He later had many back surgeries, issues, and I wonder if his bones were happy or concave. This was 20 years ago. A mother never stops worrying. My superpower is that I don't get hangovers. I didn't get a hangover until 30. Good luck in making it longer than me. I'd literally be able to drink until I could barely stand and then get up in the AM and go biking with friends with no issues. I'm not sure what changed at 30, but literally the day after my birthday it all went downhill. I don't get hangovers from beer, but the moment I have any drink with sugar in it, I regret it the next morning. Or anything really strong. For some reason, beer just doesn't give me a hangover though. I drank a case on my own not too long ago, and I was fine the next morning except for mild dehydration. Then I was at the bar last Saturday, and I was Ed the next morning. I love whiskey, but whiskey hates me. I can make a popping sound in my foot after I twisted my ankle years ago on command. I broke my left ankle twice, and then the third time my ligament had so much stronger scar tissue that the ligament actually tore my foot bone apart instead of having my ankle break at the site. So they didn't know about my broken foot from the ankle x-rays until they MRI'd my whole foot for months later. I was a competitive jump roper at the time and ended up jump roping for the whole 5 miles of the Macy's Thanksgiving Day parade route on a broken foot, which my doctors told me was just a sprain. Anyway, my ankle pops a lot too, and I can only move my foot up and down and not side to side. I've had arthritis in it since I was 16, and in fact, it just started hurting as I'm finishing typing this.